Today, on episode number 14 of M Pulse, we have special guest Tim Bishop, CTO of Presence Digital. We caught up with him all the way down in Cape Town, South Africa. I explore if marketing matters in mobile app development, and Peggy defines the mobile shopper and what are some key behavioral characteristics of in-store app users. And plus, we've got our Goblet of Rock. All that and so much more coming up on this episode of M Pulse. Here we go. Hello, Peggy. How are you?
Hey Rob, really well. It's early May. It's a day off, but here I am with you.
May is a day off. Is a May?
Yeah, May 1st is a day off in Europe, except for the UK. They have Friday and Monday,
May 1st is a day off. Well,
but
we
here
should
I
have
am.
taken the day off. I really appreciate you doing this on the day off. Of course,
No
there's
problem.
no such thing as a day off, is there? No,
No.
not at all. Well, I just want to remind everybody what we are doing here at M-Pulse, what this show is about. We've evolved. This is episode number 14. But we are the show that provides companies with everything they need to know to encourage users to engage with their apps. Whether it's a brand, whether it's a game, it doesn't matter. We are here to bring light to this very, very important topic around engagement with the brands, with the applications. And that's what we bring these guests on for. That's what we bring these news articles for. That's why we bring these insights. So just want to remind everybody, and there's 13 other great episodes. If this is your first episode, there are 13 other great ones. 13 great ones sitting there waiting for you to listen. And that's the greatest thing. I'm so excited for you guys who are just coming on right now. You got so much backlog of inventory to get through. So really appreciate you coming on and sharing and doing this with us. So episode number 14. Peggy, I need to take a moment here before we go forward and talk about something that I've mentioned a couple of times, and you're going to be involved in this. Something that we are launching on May 1st on this great holiday, something called Untether Talks. We're very excited about this, obviously. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. And this is something called Untether Talks. We're doing it in June 26th and 27th this year, 56 days from now, in Toronto at the Glen Gould Studio, which is, if you are Canadian, you know that that's the studio attached to CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And it's a beautiful studio. And we've got a lineup of speakers that you'll see there. We've got Amber MacArthur, who is a social media maven. She's one of my favorite people on the planet, and especially when it comes to knowledge of social and the impact that mobile is having on social. We got Doug Stevens, who's focusing on the retail space. We got Worley, who is the founder or the chief technology officer for a company called Chaotic Moon. He's the guy that we talked about that had that head, the thing strapped onto his head that controlled a longboard. Got Gary Schwartz, who we've had on our show, who I love. He's going to talk about the impact of cash. We've got Sydney Eve Matrix, who is a woman who is deeply entrenched in the impact that mobile is having on education. She's a prof at Queen's University. Scott Kvitin, who is the CEO of Urban Airship. You've got me, and you've got Asif Khan, who is the CEO and the founder of the Location-Based Marketing Association, and many, many, many more. Address is untethertalks.com. Go there, take a look at it. My hope is that we'll see you in Toronto at the end of June. I'm so excited about it. I can't wait. Can't wait. It's going to be great. That's it. That's my pitch.
Well, it sounds like an awesome lineup. I mean, I like the idea that it's looking at it from all the different perspectives because, goodness knows, I'm a veteran at conferences. I've spoken some years at over 40, give or take, depending on the year. And, having it all together, that's really important because my personal belief is that not to overstate it, mobile is on its way to being a prefix, and we need to understand the impact of mobile and where it fits into these areas, but we don't need to focus on mobile. I'm glad you didn't call it mobile talks or something. I would have been really disappointed.
No, we decided to go.
It's about everything.
Yeah, we decided to go on
cool.
Tether, and I just put the themes up there. We're talking about social, retail and pricing, currency and cash, media, art and creation, health, education and learning, civic engagement and government. We are sponsored heavily God love them. Norton Rose, which is a national law firm. Deloitte, obviously. We've got some great media partners in you and a company called BVO2 here in Ottawa. Very, very, very excited about this. Can't wait to bring more and more content as we'll go. And you know, but just check out Untethered Talks. I don't want to take up any more time. I really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you guys. This is the first time we've gone public with it. The first time anybody's seen the website here on Amp Pulse. I'm so excited. So Peggy, now what's new with you? Let's get into this. What is new at Mobile Groove? Because there's always stuff that's going on at Mobile Groove.
Yeah, that's true. It's great times. I mean, the new design also allows me to present voices, present a community of voices, people I think you need to hear more from. Some of them are guest contributors, some are regular contributors, and if you're pulling up the site right now, you'll see there's a list of regular contributors there. Jeff Hassan doing mobile marketing, who's awesome. I don't think he needs an introduction. He's just finished a book about mobile marketing. We have Charles Knight, who's doing mobile search. Ken Heron, fantastic, my go-to guy for everything social. And list goes on and on there. Gary Schwartz also going to tell us about the impulse economy. Yes, he's there as well. So it's growing, and that's what interestingly brings me to both the joy, literally, of having such a great community, and also my big data point, because that's what I do on the show. So this week I welcome Joy Liuzzo, and she is known probably best as the mobile researcher over at a company. But now she has a different company consultancy called Wave Collapse, and she shared some information, some slides, some data with me in the run-up to when she'll be speaking just in a couple more days at an M-Commerce Summit put together by mobile marketers. So there you go. So it's the community growing on Mobile Groove, and it's also that wonderful cross-pollination that she fed me some data for the show.
What we're supposed to be doing. That's the best part of this. So do you want to dive into your data? We'll let you go through first and bring this up, because what we're going to be talking about here is the key behavioral characteristics of in-store app users and the way that they use these apps in store. Like it's a mindset that we've got to understand here. So want to just jump into it?
Yeah, I will. I mean, what Joy's looking at and what I can understand is, there's a lot of excitement thinking, what do we use? What are apps? What is that in the retail experience? And people are getting very excited because, we use them for price comparison. We use them to purchase, really important. So you get to wonder, well, what about mobile shopping? It's such a buzzword. Who is the mobile shopper? What is a mobile shopper? How do they behave with mobile, with their apps? And so, as I said, Joy gave me some insight into her research, some consumer research. And since it's fresh off the presses, I have to read it a little bit and share it with you. So she separated the in-store behaviors from the on-device behaviors. So mobile, and then the mobile user, the in-app user, in-store app user rather. So I'd like to take you through some of the top level findings, and Joy will be back on over at Mobile Groove to contribute a column that will go deeper into the data than I will here. I just want to give you the top level. So first of all, roughly a third of smartphone users reported that they use apps while they are in the physical store to help them shop. So connect the dots there. The real news is that people use mobile in store. They are really shoppers, which means they are more likely to purchase products across all mediums in a week than non-in-store users. And she also shares other observations about the in-store app user compared to the non-user. So what is it about the in-store app user? Well, they're more likely to browse at a physical store and more likely to purchase online, be it online, mobile, tablet. That's all more or less morphing together anyway. They're more likely to find shopping on mobile an enjoyable event. It's fun, it's enjoyable for them, it's in their DNA, and they're more than twice as likely to have their device in their hand while they're in the store. And finally, they're more likely to have made a purchase using their phone in the past anyway. So if you sort of connect the dots, you get the idea that the mobile shopper, the in-store app user, is serious about shopping to begin with. It's not something external, like something happens and they use their app. It's internal. They come into the store with the purpose of continually engaging with that app while they're also in the store. So that gives developers, that gives brands, that gives retailers something to think about. What else is interesting about people who purchase on their mobile is that it's not a planned purchase. It's rather, it is a planned purchase rather than the impulse buy. We sort of have this image of the mobile shopper as being someone who goes in the store, triggered by something to engage, sees something appear on the device, and yes, I have to buy it now. But actually, it's a planned process rather than impulse buy. And that's another thing to work into the app experience. You know, if I'm going to be using this to plan a purchase, then I need to be thinking about research. I need to be thinking about activities that will allow me to research, allow me to see what's on offer. And so, you know, we see that the opportunity to take advantage of impulse buying on mobile, what was the last planned purchase or what was the last purchase, planned or impulsive? You see what that tells us. And then you put it all together, connect the dots as Joy did, and you see that companies making apps, it's about encouraging engagement, it's about encouraging transactions, but it's also about understanding the profile of the mobile shopper. What do they have in mind when they come into the store? What do they have in mind when they interact with the app? And interestingly, she's seeing this in her research and she'll be sharing more of it, but we're seeing also a number of mobile shoppers emerge, different categories, different profiles of mobile shoppers. You know, there are the ones who are the browsers. There are the ones who are maybe more impulsive than others. There are the ones who are the deal hunters, who like the price comparison apps. So you put this all together and it tells you that you have to take into account these behavioral states. You have to think about the types of mobile users, the in-app users, the categories, the characteristics, and you have to build apps and experiences to cater to those.
You know, it's almost, I mean, it's so fascinating to see the impact of in-store purchases like this, or the in-store effect of mobile, because one would think that you know, you are at a right point to buy, and you have to influence that decision at that moment. And that's one of the things that, you know, the big joke about Best Buy has always been that it's the, you know, it's the electronic showroom for Amazon, because everybody knows that you're in there making ready to make a decision, a buy decision, and you have to be able to, as a retailer, influence that decision. But you're so right. You know, when you put it in these terms, it's so interesting to think about, because you are at an influential state. You are doing your research, and you know, the consumer has never been more educated. They have never had more power in their hands than they do right now, and that's why this is so fascinating. It just goes to show you the influence that mobile is going to have going forward on the retail industry. It's going to be incredible. It's either incredible in a good way or incredible in a devastating way for the retailers, isn't it?
Well, that's one point, Rob. I mean, when you read through this and you say to yourself, okay, so people who are mobile shoppers, that's what they love to do. They are going to look for deals anyway. It's not an external trigger thing. It's internal. It's in them. It's in their behavior. Then you can stop maybe as a retailer being afraid of price comparison apps. Just accept that, and then add some value on top of that, because that behavior exists in the mobile shopper, in the shopper, without the app anyway. So when you understand what triggers the behavior, what the real behavior is, then you can understand where you can add value on top, and you can stop sort of more or less running away from the inevitable. I mean, these apps are here to stay. Retailers can't wish them away. What do they need to do? They need to think about how to add value on top, or how to focus on different segments of shoppers. In any case, it's a great report. It tells us what the next thing will be. You know, segmenting the mobile shopper, not thinking of mobile shoppers as one big group.
I love that point, though. You're right. It's like inherently, we as humans are looking for the best deal. We don't want to get screwed. So,
yeah.
You know, this is just a
yeah. Don't blame it on the app.
That's so. You know, when you bring it down to that, this isn't a behavior that mobile has created. This is a behavior that humans have created over our entire shopping span, or shopping lifespan. It's so funny. Yes, mobile cannot take credit for that. It is evolution. Wow. Thank you. It's so simple. So very cool. Well, I look forward to that. And you know, as soon as you get some more meat around this and it's up on Mobile Groove, let me know. We'll start pushing this out. So look for this kind of content up on mobilegroove.com. You should be there anyways. If you're not, shame, 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 shame. 14 episodes in and you haven't visited Mobile Groove. That's terrible. Well, you know, in line with this, Peggy, it's serendipity that this happened this week on Tether. We have a guest article writer. His name is Jeff Bacon. He is the director of mobile development for a company here called Bitheads, or Ascension Media is what they're called. He wrote an article for us entitled, it's actually very apropos, "Marketing is Part of Making a Great Mobile App." And this is one of these things that marketing has always been looked at as a negative connotation to engineers. You know, I've worked with some you know, Peggy, those typical engineers that come out and they say, listen, fire the sales guy, fire the marketing guy. We have an app store. That's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to get our app out there. Just get rid of them. We don't need sales and marketing. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that we're starting to turn this around. And I don't know if we've convinced any engineers, but Jeff wrote this great article about, hey, listen, marketing is part of making a great app. At the same time, you know, I mean, it's so true. At the same time, I sat down, you know, I was intrigued by this article. I'm going to pull it up here right now, which is called "The Art of Launching an App." It's a case study done by John Casey. He is the founder of a company called, well, I mean, he is the founder of a company that that focuses on PR and marketing around mobile applications. And I was intrigued by this article because, look, you know what? This is something that people have got to understand, is that the art of launching an app is not just about creating an app and pushing it out there. And that's what we've talked about. So I got an opportunity to sit down with him and do a long form interview that just went live today. It's under the same thing. It's up on Tether. It's called "The Art and Skill of Launching a Mobile App." It's with John Casey. But what he did, I'm just going to summarize this. Go, if you're very interested in this, go and take a look at the article. It is actually up on Smashing Magazine. But what he has managed to do is he's brought up a couple of things. He did this great summary of lessons learned, and I want to walk through them very quickly. What he did was he helped a company launch a children's book with audio and media, interactive media, for David and Goliath, the David and Goliath story. So he actually got a baseball player. His name is David Eckstein. He was the 2006 World Series MVP for the St. Louis Cardinals. David Eckstein. He's a smaller guy, you know, a real true David and Goliath story unto itself. He got David Eckstein to narrate this. Then what he did is he delayed the launch of the app. This is all part of these 6 lessons that he's learned. He's delayed the launch of the app from July of 2011 to the fall of 2011, when it would have been the 5th anniversary of David Eckstein's all-star performance, MVP performance in the World Series. And it just so happened that his St. Louis Cardinals, he wasn't playing anymore, but his St. Louis Cardinals were in the World Series again. So it was like the perfect storm that happened here, where he timed the launch of this. David Eckstein, you know, he started getting coverage on MLB.com, which is Major League Baseball's website. You know, he got Wired magazine, Daddy Blog up there talking about this. David Eckstein promoted this. It created such a media buzz that timing was so important. So these are the lessons that he learned. He learned, there's 5 of them. One of them is partnership. So, you know, he leveraged these relationships to create partnerships. The other one is relevance. Obviously, that you can launch an app in July and you're just going to compete with the other apps. Put some relevance around your launch, which helps. This is all part of marketing. Audience. Understand who your audience is very clearly, who the influencers are. And he said, instead of playing to a stadium, play to a niche audience. Is exactly what you talked about around the retail piece as well, Peggy. And, you know, if there is a cause for this, he uses a great example around cause marketing around mobile applications of an alarm clock, that every time you hit this snooze button, you hit you donate 25 cents to charity. That'll get me up pretty soon, because $10 a day in snooze button costs. And then relationships. Incorporate unique ways of bringing in relationships. And you know, one of the great things that he's done is he created this relationship with David Eckstein to promote the app. It shot up to #1 in the app store for kids books, narrated kids books. And David Eckstein then created a relationship with him, and he's now leveraging these relationships for other aspects of it. It just, you know, when you think about marketing, when you think about app development, you have to think about marketing from the get-go. And that was one of the things that all of a sudden, for some reason, 2 articles, same day, around mobile marketing on untether.tv. It was, serendipitous, but it just shows you how important this problem or this issue is. You have to address marketing when you're building your apps. And really, really fascinating. I love this kind of stuff, and I'm glad that we're starting to see this, where maybe the engineers can dominate in the code. And I don't pretend to tell them, as this is what John said. He said, I don't pretend to tell them how to do their job. They should leave marketing to the guys who can do their job as well. So, it was a great conversation, and very, very topical. John Casey, The Art of Launching an App. Cool.
I like that, Rob. You know why? It's because it makes this all attainable. Because there's nothing in those tips, and they were great tips. You can apply those to a lot of different things, not just the launch of an app. But what's interesting and why we have this show is you see again how common sense that we might have known from, Marketing 101, or, we know this from other areas. And now you just have to apply it very carefully, very intelligently to the mobile space, to mobile apps, and it works. And that's why I like it. It's a good news piece for me because it says you can use what works here, just use it a little bit differently. You don't have to reinvent things to be part of mobile.
You don't. And the key point of all of these things is, like, even when it comes to mobile and retail and marketing, is that you never want to do two things. I always say this, like at the end of a launch, at the end of this, you're packing up your boxes, you're shutting down your office. You never want to have any regrets about things that you didn't do. You want to be able to influence this. And that's one of the things. If you can do something to move things forward, do it. The other thing is that you do not want to have anybody else in control of your destiny when it comes to the apps. So you don't put it up into the app space. There's a million apps up there, and then hope. Right? All that effort that you put into it is wasted. You have to be able to influence what you're doing when it comes to mobile. If you're going to build an app, you're not going to build the next Angry Birds overnight. The odds are against you. Go buy a lottery ticket instead, because your odds are better that you're going to win that lottery than actually winning the Angry Birds lottery. So you have to be able to influence people's awareness of the application. That's marketing. And if you're not doing it, you're missing 90% of the effort that's going to give you a return. Building the app isn't going to give you the return for the most part. Marketing it and effectively distributing and partnering with people, making it relevant, knowing your audience, maybe doing some cause marketing, building relationships. This is what's going to help you drive those activities. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out on, as I said, 90% of the opportunity. So, yeah, it's good. We're coming around to the marketing world again, and I think that's good, especially in the mobile space where you can influence it. So those are the two stories. I think they're great stories. It's almost too much, Peggy. We should just limit it to one. It's too much. Too much goodness.
Well, we're working on that. We have some ideas and some additions that we're launching, as being part of it. But we're getting there. And I wouldn't want to steal your thunder here, but it's by accident a great way to get to our guest, because again, it's about marketing basics, knowing your audience, knowing your app. I mean, you couldn't wish for a better segue.
No, you couldn't. And I mean, we had a great opportunity to sit down with Tim Bishop, who's the CTO of Presence Digital. He's based in Cape Town, South Africa. And his insights are, incredible because of not only of where he is and what he's going through, but just to show you the global dominance that is happening around the mobile space, and where he's focusing his energy, and some of the companies that he's working with, and some of the trends that he's seeing in South Africa, and the market space and the opportunities for revenue generation. It's all in here. It's all in here from Tim Bishop, who is a transplant from the UK down into South Africa, and we just had a great conversation. Probably didn't want it to end, and that's what I'm finding about these people. There's a type of person. It's like Springsteen fans are a type of people. It's like a brethren. We get along. In the mobile space, when you get a bunch of people in the mobile space talking, we are all the same. We are all the same. We love this industry, and Tim is no different. So here is Tim Bishop, the CTO of Presence Digital, and we had an opportunity to sit down with him. He's live from Cape Town, South Africa. Here's Tim. Well, welcome back, everybody. We are joined today from Cape Town, South Africa. We've got Tim Bishop, who is the CTO of a company called Presence Digital. They're at Presence, it's Presence zence.co.uk. And as I said, Tim is the CTO all the way from Cape Town. We're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about certainly the company presence. We're going to talk about the landscape in Africa, South Africa. What's down there? Is it feature phones? Is it smartphones? How to build for the mass in South Africa, and a number of other topics. Tim, man, really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for doing this.
Hi, Rob. Pleasure. Nice to be here.
So all the way down in Cape Town, South Africa, I love the global perspective that we're getting here, and especially because this is an emerging massive market, as we've seen it, as everybody knows. Why don't you talk about presence and what it is that you hope to do down there and what you are doing down there?
Surely, well, I suppose it is truly global, and I've got the funniest South African accent in the world because I'm actually British.
Don't you recognize that? That's a good South African accent, yes.
Absolutely. We opened presence in South Africa in 2002, where we were originally a UK company.
Wait, I got to ask, before you even go further, why South Africa?
Why South Africa?
In 2002. Have you been, Rob?
It's absolutely stunning. And Cape Town is just incredible. So, I've had my kids here, and it's a beautiful place to live. And we really are blessed and very, very lucky. So if you came here, you'd know exactly why South Africa.
Fair enough. So now, about presence.
Okay, so we were a UK company servicing the record industry in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we opened up a branch here in Cape Town in 2002, where the internet was pretty shocking and appalling at the time. And because we were British and brilliant, we started to do really good things here and enjoyed it immensely. And I moved over here and spent all my time here and started a family here, but really concentrated on making things great here. And don't get me wrong, we're not the only people doing that. But one of the things that's always been very obvious here in South Africa, we have huge bandwidth problems, fixed line internet problems. We only have 6 million people on fixed line internet here. So mobile was always going to be a big play in South Africa. We saw that very early. So in the early days, we were doing lots of interactive SMS platforms and the such like, and also we have a very base technology here called USSD, but it's very, very important, which is interactive text and what have you. And then we started mobile web about 6 or 7 years ago. We did some work with Vodafone Live when they launched here, technical work, and we just saw how powerful this was going to become. And we never stopped running with mobile web for the last 7 years. I've been telling my board for the last 7 years that honestly this year is the year of the mobile, and they think I'm a bloody idiot now. Well, I mean, now they think I'm clever, but for the last 7 years they thought I was an idiot. So it's finally happened. Everybody's talking about mobile now around the world, which is absolutely awesome. But we've been sprinting for the last 7 years, and we feel that we've sort of got we've got a little bit ahead of most people, and not least a full understanding of the challenges here in Africa.
What is your business model? You're out there building mobile environments for companies down there. You're out of the music business?
Yeah, I mean, look, music was always a labour of love. Everybody knows the record company's got no money, so we used to do it for,
That's true.
For fun and the odd brandy and coke here and there. But we do less music now, but it is a big passion. But as far as Presence Digital, we're actually a full-service digital agency and always have been. So we handle everything that a digital agency working, social media management, big web systems, content management, and what have you. It just so happens that we've built out a very strong mobile division, a separate mobile division over the last 6-7 years, which has given us incredible capability from the bottom of the pyramid to the top, bottom of the pyramid being SMS, USSD, all the way up to the top now, which is multi-platform apps and tab apps and what have you. So our business model really is to service all our clients, no matter what industry, and we work everything from financial services and banking through to music. We sap up a couple of £100 they might have. Literally anybody who wants beautiful, fantastic, interactive stuff. But I guess I would say that.
Well, how big has that the mobile piece grown for you guys? Is it? Are you seeing a trend, obviously, that it's taken up more and more of your time?
Without a doubt, and to be brutally honest, as long as my board aren't watching this, it takes up all of my time. I think mobile's a huge passion for me, not least because I've put my weight behind it for a long, long time, and it's great that now it's come to fruition. And in Africa, obviously, it's perhaps a little bit more important than it is everywhere else, not least because there is no other option. And we'll probably run into some of the challenges that we have in Africa because, I always say Americans and Europeans have it so much easier because they've only got to worry about an iPhone and an Android device, right? We've got something like 6,500 here, and 6,499 of those are crap.
So you're down there making apps on behalf of your clients, on behalf of your brands, and we know it's a feature phone market, but it's also a Mobi first market, a mobile website first market. Maybe you can run through some of the challenges, but more importantly, and some of the solutions about how to bring apps to a market where you have to figure out where an app is going to do something a website won't.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we've been preaching for a long time, Mobi first in Africa. I mean, we believe that any sort of brand really shouldn't make assumptions about their users or assumptions of what handsets they have. My wife, for instance, perfect example, has a 200 rand, which is like a $25 Nokia, which is just about web capable, and why should that be excluded? So for us doing anything, we always say it's Mobi first, purely because of the technology that we've built and been running with for the last 6 or 7 years, which is something we call the HCA, which is handset content adaptation. So everybody claims to be able to recognize handsets and what have you, but it's what you do with the content through it that's important, which has enabled us to do highly complex mobile or Mobi sites that can literally do anything on any handset. So to put a bit of the landscape in South Africa specifically, or the handset landscape to you, we have approximately 50 million cell phones in South Africa. Only about 7 million of those are smartphones. The rest are all feature phones or below. So there's a little product. There's two big products in South Africa that are very important handsets. One's a Samsung E250. It's a tiny little device, and the other one is a Nokia Music Express. Between those two little handsets, there are more of those two handsets than there are entire smartphones here. And our smartphone segmentation gets even more interesting. So unlike Europe and the US, if you develop for iPhone and Android, you've covered 90% of the market. Here it's a little bit different. So the smartphone market here, of those 8 million, pretty much 60% of those are BlackBerries, and 25% plus are Nokias. Android and iPhone only make up 10% of the smartphone market here. So we do a lot of talking to brands because, of course, every brand manager owns an iPhone. So the first port of call is to do an iPhone app because, of course, the rest of the population have one, right? So we show them the stats, and no doubt we end up doing an iPhone app first just to keep the brand manager happy. But the two most important platforms really here, and the last thought about by anybody, is obviously the Symbian platform for Nokia and BlackBerry, which we've had to skill up, and more recently, Windows Phone. So we've internally skilled up for all platforms, which I think is important because there's a lot of segmentation for brands going to different technology companies for the different apps with different look and feel and everything else. So we go for a master app design and then we translate it into Metro for Windows Phone and different usability stuff. BlackBerry's slightly limited, be careful what I say there. And then obviously Android versions and what have you.
So you told me about the landscape. I'd like to hear more about also the usage, the insights you could give me there, because it'd be interesting to know what is the value. A brand always has to deliver value, right? So what is the value proposition wrapped up in an app in your market? Does it have to be something that helps me manage my life? Can it still be entertainment and games? What can you share, Tim?
Well, I think it's exactly the same as anywhere else in the world because, all human beings are much alike. So, an app is like any product. If you're in Adidas developing a new pair of football boots, you need to know that there's a market and you put in considerable time and effort to make sure that those football boots will create demand and they'll kick the ball straight and everything else. And as much effort should be put into developing an app, which is a product as well. There needs to be value for the user. More importantly, in terms of the sort of app wasteland where 98% of apps fall, you need to create something that obviously somebody wants to use the next day. And that's the same for literally anything on any platform. So it's always got to deliver value and engagement. But what we found a lot, because we've been doing so much work in the Mobi space, everybody thinks there's a very large difference between what an app can do and what Mobi can do. And we've narrowed that gap immensely across all phones. So our Mobi sites now work at the lowest common denominator for an E250. So, something like Ster-Kinekor.Mobi, which is sort of South Africa's premier movie house or cinema chain. Obviously, they've got to go out to the mass market. So the mass market don't all have internet. The mass market have mobile phones. So to create a Mobi site is incredibly important, not just to show cinema listings, but also the primary functions of booking tickets. So we had a real complex challenge in terms of making it beautiful, because everything we believe needs to be beautiful. Mobile doesn't have to look rubbish, which it has done for ages. There's no excuse for that. So it needs to look great. It needs to work on every single handset. It needs to have usability. This is another bugbear of ours. You know, a lot of Mobi sites, mobile stuff are generally built by technology companies. Us as a digital agency, we think is a much better way of doing things because we understand usability and UX is incredibly important. Not least because we deal, you know, certainly in this country with people who are literally just jumping onto the mobile web. They've never seen the normal web. They don't know what a drop down is. So you've got to make sure things are really, really intuitive and easy for us human beings and my gran and my mum and everybody else, which form part of my testing team. But for Stay Clinical, we had to make sure that there was some commercial viability there. So not just about viewing cinema listings. Obviously, you need to be able to watch trailers and everything else, but more importantly, you need to book your seat. And more importantly, still in the latest iteration of the Stay Clinical mobile site, you need to be able to choose your seat because you want to know exactly where you're sitting. So doing that with a cinema with 600 seats and choosing individual seat bookings on a Samsung E250 is a huge challenge, but we nailed it. And then what we do then is just because it works on an E250 doesn't mean us posh guys with their iPhones and what have you should miss out and have sort of a slightly watered down experience. We then upwardly enhance to make sure that when you go there on an iPhone, it knows it's an iPhone. So we give you some little touchy, swipey, nicey things and all that kind of stuff that an iPhone user would like. But within that Mobi site, and there's a new iteration coming soon as well, it does all the clever things that apps can do. So, you know, we can integrate into all sorts of things, such as hardware GPS. So Stay Clinical will automatically locate you and map you and direct you and what have you from the Mobi site using any phone's hardware, which is great. We can bolt into accelerometers from Mobi. On the Android platform, we can even bolt into the camera, so we can do all sorts of things. So when we then wanted to take Stay Clinical into the app space, which we're doing now, and all the apps roll out across all platforms next month, it was really difficult to try and find extra features that we hadn't built into Mobi that we built into apps. So really the big differentiator for us in the apps for the Stay Clinical experience is UI, because we can do a little bit more in the UI space. So it is very touch and swipe, nice big images because data cost is invisible to an app user or a lot less obvious to an app user. But very important to a Mobi user in South Africa because 85% of mobile users in South Africa are post-paid. So there's hardly any contract. So every single random cent and big images that you deliver to them is costing them a serious amount of money. So the apps are slightly different, so we can go a little bit more mad on the UI stuff. But other than that, there's that margin of difference between mobile and app now is very slight.
On that, I mean, it's fascinating, Tim, because, I mean, North America is very, very, very much app-focused, right? They're talking about HTML5 as the savior for cross-platform development. It's a very interesting time to be a part of this. But do you find that when a customer comes to you and you have that feature phone first mentality, because that's who's using these, do you build apps to their simplest form at that level? Like, do you find that you have to drill down to say, okay, what is it that you want this thing to do? Because you got to work up from there, you know, into the splash of the app space. Do they become simpler and easier to use as a result?
Well, I mean, the first question that we ask is who are we trying to target? So obviously, you know, there's an app first play for some brands. So, you know, for the banks like the Investex and all those kind of people, which are sort of more private bank type stuff, straight away it's apps. You'd never try and preach Mobi for them. You know damn well all of their customers have got apps, so that's absolutely fine. Here, then we've got the problem of fragmentation that it's very expensive then to deliver apps because you've got to deliver the apps on all 5 platforms as opposed, you know, to hit sort of 80 to 90% as opposed to the US where you can just do Android and iOS and you've hit those 90%. That's why for a brand or anybody else that wants to hit the mass market, there's budget constraints. From what I spoke about earlier, we can make Mobi do pretty much what apps can do. And I was at South by Southwest and lucky enough to be there last month, and I could see how how the Americans were totally app focused, but you can be. So it's not a problem. To be honest, it could be. It's easy. Building apps is easy. You can do anything. You put anything anywhere, but maybe that's not so much fun. For us, we've got a big challenge. Apps is like the top 10% of our challenge, and filling that bottom and speaking to, or being able to give brands the opportunity to interact with 100% of the population is a fantastic challenge. But the answer to how we go out to the market with a mobile solution depends on who that brand is and what we're trying to do. And it quite often is a cross-section of that, all the way down to the bottom, from USSD and Mobi to capture the very bottom of the pyramid and just above, or Mobi and apps, all those kind of things. So it totally depends. We customize the solutions and try and recommend to clients exactly what they need to achieve their objectives.
Just curious, you gave us an overview of what the brands want in their apps. Do you have an overview also of the verticals and their interest in mobile apps? Because I follow, for example, the reports from companies, mobile. Take, for example, the Mobile Mix and Smart Report from Millennial Media. They look at the various sectors, the various verticals, and say they're investing more in mobile apps, and there's a shift going on there. What are you seeing?
Well, at the moment, there's no real pattern. It basically means if you're a brand, and if you're a brand manager, they've been told by their son or their daughter that they have to have an app. So literally every vertical, no matter how irrelevant, calls us. I mean, we even speak to brands that literally deal sort of right at sort of township grassroots levels, talking to us about iPhone apps, which is, ridiculous. And obviously we'll try and talk them out of it and say, we'll happily take your money, but look. So I don't think here in South Africa anything's really emerged in terms of apps. There's not much good quality stuff out there, to be brutally honest, but that's starting to change. So you'll find some of the big brands, the health insurance companies, and those kind of people with a bit of money have put apps out there. But it's probably a little bit like the US is, as soon as anything becomes sort of faddy and talked about like mobile, the world and his wife becomes a mobile expert. So, instantly we've got 1,000 app companies here in South Africa, probably half of them out of a bedroom or what have you. So, there's a lot of rubbish out there, but there's also, there's some good stuff emerging now. We've always claimed in South Africa to be ahead of the curve in mobile, and we're really hoping to push that. So hopefully next time we'll be speaking to you, we'll be actually showcasing these kind of launch apps that we're talking about now. It's sort of world-class and beyond, fingers crossed.
Great. What about, okay, so I got a real question here, is that, Africa is an emerging market for a lot of North American companies, a lot of European companies. You guys, 2002, moved from, or opened up a branch office from the UK. So now we've also looked at mobile as being a global market, meaning that I can sell anywhere. You can download my app anywhere. I can interact with any client I want to around the planet. But there are challenges of going from a North American perspective or a European perspective to sell into an African market. I mean, do you have any advice for companies trying to tap into the African market, not to go and sell apps, but to literally extend the reach of their existing product into Africa? Is there, do you have any advice? Is there any strategies that they should be looking at?
To actually transact here?
Yeah, like to, we talk about this, in North America, there's apps that are all the rage that are, and mobile websites, things like Instagram, things that like companies here are looking at growth in different markets. And, you had a really interesting point there saying that, listen, 60% of our smartphones down there are BlackBerry. In North America, now BlackBerries are running joke, but really,
swear word.
It's a swear word. Nice. I'm Canadian, so I got to balance this. I love RIM. We don't want to lose RIM. Competition is good. But, so when they're building an application and they want to attack a market like South Africa for that application, for that mobile website, is there anything that they should be cognizant, aware of, concerned about as they're getting into those markets?
No, I mean, obviously, in terms of our market, I mean, we have the iStore and everything else, and Google Play, like you guys do. So obviously, pushing apps into a market there is great. I mean, as long as it's relevant and whatever. So the Instagrams and the Facebooks, of course, they're no-brainers. We're downloading those apps all the time. But obviously, the thing to know is don't expect much in terms of volumes. You know, we're not the US or that kind of stuff. 8 million smartphones, your sort of install base. I mean, I think the last figures that we saw, there's like 400,000 iPhones here. You know, it's really small. So if you've got an iPhone app and you're going to put it in the iStore here and target South Africa, obviously it's going to be a damn sight smaller than anywhere else. From a transactional point of view, no, actually, let me just touch on that payment. The important thing that we found about Nokia here in South Africa and Africa is they've done a very, very clever thing. So for iStore and Google Play and all that kind of stuff, you need a credit card. So there's your other problem in Africa, right? Our credit card install base is tiny. So we've got two problems, smartphone and credit card. So in terms of premium apps and buying stuff, that's quite difficult here because one, you need a smartphone, two, you need a credit card. So that's, you know, fine for us kind of guys, but again, limited market. What Nokia have done very cleverly in South Africa is that you can actually buy apps in the Ovi store or the Nokia store or whatever it's called now, using your airtime, which has been amazing. So it opens up app purchase to absolutely everybody. So obviously the Nokia App Store is incredibly powerful here. I mean, we've got a fantastic case study. We built a small news app, an entertainment music news app, just to see what the power of the Nokia Store would be in Africa, and it's called Entertainment Africa. And within 3 or 4 months, we'd had over 500,000 downloads of this thing, albeit free, but just to see, you know, how powerful it is. I mean, obviously the other stores here in South Africa and Africa don't do anything near that. I think it's South Africa's biggest downloaded app by far. So Nokia have sort of got that right. So, you know, if you are from the US or anywhere else wanting to make money in that, if you deploy it into the Nokia store and you cover Series 60 Symbian and Series 40, which is the feature phone, which is everywhere in Africa. I mean, bear in mind, in Africa itself, 70% of devices in Africa are Nokias, which is quite incredible. So if you want to make money in Africa, I'm afraid you're going to have to develop in Symbian. Can't have everything, right?
We talked about the apps and the opportunities. I was wondering, could you get a little bit more focused on it? You said, okay, they download everything that we download in the rest of the world. The usage is very similar, but you know, there must be some areas of opportunity down there that are really awesome in South Africa. Otherwise, you wouldn't have opened up an office down there, right, Tim?
Well, yeah, that's true, but also I wouldn't tell you, otherwise you'll come and compete with me. No, there's plenty of opportunities. I mean, it's an incredible country like that, you know, it's really embraced technology hugely. The people are fantastic and very forward-thinking. There is loads of opportunities in all sorts of, you know, different verticals and what have you. And frankly, the population and now the new mobile population, if you like, are dying for content and dying to interact with brands across the mobile platforms, of which very few are doing it very well. So the opportunity is huge. I mean, not least for mobile advertising, booming here, you know, without a shadow of a doubt. There's a lack of inventory. So, you know, there's a lack of good companies and portals and what have you that have gone properly mobile. So, you know, the African traffic is just going through the roof, and people are jumping on the bandwagon and starting to use the mobile web all the time. Feature phones is still the biggest seller in Africa, always will be. So as long as you're catering for those and you're in the mobile ad traffic industry, then you're onto a winner. As long as you've got engaging content, obviously the rules still apply here as they do anywhere else in the world. You can't put up rubbish and they will come. You know, it's, you know, they're still discerning even though we're Africans, right?
Still a sophisticated palette when it comes to the mobile experience. It's across the board.
Well, we're human beings, you know. I mean, we're all exactly the same. So, you know, we want things to load fast. We want things to be really easy to use. You know, and that comes back to UX as well. So, you know, this is the problem with web companies turning into mobile companies. They are completely different, the mobile experience. So you need to throw away almost everything that you've learned to know and refocus on mobile. So, you know, we always equate it to when we're designing for web, we have the biggest boardroom table and we can put any rubbish on it and we can have flashing lights and do all sorts of stuff. That's the web. But on the mobile web, we've got the tiniest little desk. We've got the most important thing on there. So a cup of coffee, your telephone, your pack of smokes or whatever floats your boat. And then you work out what's from there. So that's how we sort of look at designing for the tiny little screen. So we try and pre-guess what the user wants or will want, and then do an intuitive experience thereafter based on best guess. In the more sophisticated mobile sites where we're running profiler tools, we know exactly who you are. We can obviously serve exactly what we know you're going to like, because you're on the go, you're waiting in a queue, you're snacking for 2 minutes. There's other little things and considerations which so many people miss is news portals that make images clickable as well as headlines. That's great on a touch phone, but on a cursor phone, it's stopping twice every time you're going down. Little things like that are missed. Touch phones, I can't believe how so many people get that wrong. So you go to a motor site and a news site and you'll get headline, 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 headline. Your finger is this big, your thumb is this big. So we've always designed for the thumb, right? Because we've got a cup of Starbucks in our hand here and we're browsing one-handed. So you can't pinch and zoom into headlines. There are so many news sites that go, oh, I'm a touch device, or I'm delivering to a touch device, just space it out a little bit more. So all those things we do automatically. It's like everything in our keynote when we talk about UX just seems to be common sense. It's quite amazing how the world is missing it. Supposedly the best agency and the best mobile brains and all this kind of stuff. It's absolutely incredible. We like to think we're doing something. We're not saying we're perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I think getting back to basics and throwing everything away and starting looking at mobile and the fact that we do it one hand with a thumb or with a cursor in the middle of a desert, or fighting lions as we do here in Cape Town every day. We definitely think with the mobile user in mind all the time, and you have to do that.
I love that approach because not many people, and I say this on a global scale, in this business really understand that mobile is so different than anything that we've ever done before. And you have to throw away the things that you learned, unlearned. You have to unlearn the things that made the web basically a big bloatware, right? And relearn how to interact with one-on-one to solve a problem. And the way you just described it is incredible. I got to ask, where can people find you, your company, information about you, a way to reach you? Where do they reach out?
You mentioned one of the URLs earlier. We sort of got quite a few. So presence.co.uk will point you to us here, presence.co.za, presencedigital.com, presence.mobi, all sorts of different places. We make our keynotes available because we've been keynoting for the last year really to other agencies and brands, and it's really telling you how to do mobile, the basics of mobile. And, we're not precious about it because I don't believe it's rocket science. It's just those sort of base ingredients that will let you design something cool for a human being like me and you. And I think that's what people miss quite a lot. So I'm sure you can easily find us wherever, and I'll happily send information on to anybody, send them examples. I suggest that everybody in the US, Canada, and Europe make sure that they buy a Samsung E250 and experience how horrible that is, but how good it can be when mobile's done properly for it.
There you go. That's the best ad I've ever heard from this is a Samsung. It's pretty
Samsung E250. Yeah, I should have shared before I said that, I guess.
Well, listen, Tim, I really appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much for coming on. I know that you're heading out for the day. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing this great view of what it is to be right in the thick of the development community inside of Cape Town in South Africa, looking at this opportunity. Really appreciate you doing this.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks for the honor.
We have been speaking with Tim Bishop, who is the CTO of a company called Presence Digital. I'm just going to send you to presence.co.uk. That's P-R-E-Z or Z, depending on what country you're in, ence.co.uk for more information. And look around for their keynotes. There's some pretty impressive stuff. I've seen a bunch of their slides already. Very, very enjoyable. Basic. You can actually learn some stuff from what they are pushing out there. So go to presence.co.uk. Really appreciate you doing this, Tim. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, guys.
Tim Bishop. Yeah, as you can see, it's an infectious feeling around the mobile space, and all we're looking at is opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And you know, I don't know about you, but I'm a Canadian guy, and you saw it in there. That listen, I love the fact that BlackBerry still dominates in Africa. 66% of the smartphone market. It's pretty small smartphone market, but still. And you know, the other interesting stat for me was, hey, listen, Nokia. Very relevant in developing nations. Sometimes, as we were talking about that, we forget about that, you know, as we are so European and North American focused, where smartphones, and Nokia is the joke, along with RIM. So, you know, I really appreciate Tim coming on. It was a great show. And if you have any comments about that, please reach out. Reach out to me at untether@gmail.com or to Peggy@mobilegroove.com. You can reach out, DM us at Twitter or add us on Twitter. We would love to hear from you. So thanks, Tim. Thank you, Tim. You heard that all the way in Cape Town. Yeah. Last thing we have to do here, Peggy, is raise our goblet of rock. And this fills us with such joy because we're highlighting the people, the apps, the folks that are doing things right, that we just want to get behind and we want to love. So what is it today? It's your turn.
Okay, well, I raise my goblet of rock.
And I am doing the same. Yes.
Here. Yes. Because, yes, we started out talking about unsung heroes of apps, and we looked at a couple of app developers. But then you have to step back and say, well, how's this all going to work if the framework isn't there? And we've seen so much around privacy concerns. You, Rob, you did your your comments on Path and over at your site as well. So these privacy concerns are real. And so then is the requirement for something to address them seriously. And so I raise my goblet of rock to MEF, the global community for mobile content and commerce, as they're calling themselves now, and really well timed because they've also officially just launched their Privacy in Mobile Applications initiative. And this is about doing exactly that, setting up a framework, standardizing a framework, establishing best practices, helping everyone in the ecosystem be on the same page so that ultimately what we're doing is we're building a value chain built on consumers being informed and having an informed consent. So they're not just saying, oh, I downloaded an app and, oh, I didn't know it was following me and, oh, I'm really frightened, so I'm never going to trust an app again. We don't want that because then we won't have a show. And we won't have an industry. So again, to MEF, and I'd like to just part with a quote from MEF Global Chair Andrew Budd that I was reading in the press release because I thought his quote sums it up, why they are deserving of this, and it's straightforward. Mobile applications use consumer data such as location and address books to create great consumer value, but they raise privacy concerns which we must address. And here's what I like. Transparency and informed consent are key to consumer trust. Very simple, it's very straightforward. Raise my goblet for an initiative aimed at achieving just that.
I love it. You know, I'm a big fan of MEF. I was at MEF Americas in Miami in November. Met Bud. Of course, Gary Schwartz is, big fans of Gary, who is in the chair of MEF North America. This is so important. You know, every time we turn around, there is some kind of breach or perceived breach of our rights and from around our data and usage of our data. And it goes from apps all the way up to Skype, all the way up to Facebook. And these are things that the industry has to set the boundaries, set the stage today so that what happens in the future is adhered to. Like everything going forward from this point, it's so hard to do this retroactively. So hard to do this retroactively. So I'm a big fan of what MEF is doing, and I a big fan of obviously of making sure that this is very transparent as well. So I'm with you. I'm raising my glass. I'm raising my goblet, and to MEF. And for those of you who are interested, just go to mefmobile.org, MEFMOBILE.org, and you'll see it. It's the first press release that comes up. Really, really impressed with these guys. I'm looking around, Peggy. I got nothing left. I think we hit this. We're done. We are finished.
Another one in the bag.
That is episode number 14 of M-Pulse. We really want to thank Tim Bishop for taking the time out Massive time difference, obviously, as we're trying to gauge Eastern time, to Peggy, who is in Germany, to Tim, who is in Cape Town. We have 3 different time zones that spread across a full day. So we're really appreciative of him doing that. We love your feedback. We love the fact that you guys are sticking around and watching these episodes or listening to them wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time for episode number 15, where we've got some great new changes and surprises in store for you. So we'll see you next week for episode number 15 of M Pulse. See you later, Peggy. See you, everybody.
See you, Rob.